We're back and stronger than ever. TPI Composites is bringing jobs back to Iowa, building the future of clean energy with the power of wind. Wind powers the world, and here in Iowa, it powers growth, jobs, innovation, and opportunity for generations to come. When we build here, we fuel something bigger, a cleaner future, a stronger workforce, a legacy that will last. TPI Composites. We're back, Iowa, powering the world.
Jason Aldean, Full Throttle Tour 2025, powered by Patriot Mobile. When the lights come on. Friday, September 19th, Wells Fargo Arena. With Nate Smith. You set my world on fire. And Ray Lynn. Jason Aldean. On sale now at iowaeventcenter.com. Jason Aldean Live.
We recommend listening to the CW Pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW Pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
What's up? Happy Friday. A little late CW pod in the week, but it's because I have some very special guests. Really looking forward to you guys hearing today's show, watching today's show. Brian Hardin's the athletic director of Drake, a friend of mine. Really like him, really respect him. Think it's a really hard job. I think they've done an incredible job there. And today's show is about, we talk so much about NIL, the changing scope of college athletics, all that stuff. It doesn't get talked about how it is impacting the smaller schools. Specifically, in this very particular instance, we're talking with Drake's athletic director today and the leader of their collective, Ryan Boatman. And how does Drake look going forward? How are they doing it now? So this is a business of college sports type of podcast today. If you're a Drake fan, I know you'll love it, but I think a lot of the big school fans will enjoy this as well because it gives you, we're kind of peeling back the curtain here on how it is impacting smaller schools. So that is the topic from today's podcast. I'll bring those guys on here in a minute. Of course, we are presented by our friends at Steeple Ridge Bourbon. I have in my hand the Tawny Port barrel finish. This is a tough one to find. Limited release. Don't expect you to be able to find that, but you might be able to give it a try at the Wall to Wall in West Des Moines. So they're doing a spotlight on my friends at Lonely Oak Distillery coming up on March 7th from 4 to 7. They're going to have all of their bottles there. They'll be signing bottles, samples of everything, all the Steeple Ridge bourbons and ryes. Again, that is March 7th from 4 to 7 at Wall to Wall in West Des Moines. I would do it because you're going to get a chance to try some of this more exclusive stuff that you maybe cannot find in stores. Some of my all-time favorites from Pat Hoffman and his beautiful family over at Steeple Ridge Bourbon in the Lonely Oak Distillery. I also want to thank our friends at TPI Composites in Newton. They are reopening their production facility, and you can go to TPI Composites on LinkedIn, or you can check out tpicomposites.com, and they want to really hammer this home. They're looking for new employees. So go to career opportunities at tpicomposites.com. Click on career opportunities. Again, today's show is Brian Hardin, the athletics director at Drake, and Ryan Boatman. He is the president of the Do Great Collective, that funds all the Drake NIL opportunities. This is a fun podcast. It's less fun and more informative. We did have fun, really good guys, but I got my geeky business mind going with this. Probably talk too much. You all expect that from me by now. Very informative today on the future of college athletics. Drake Athletics Director Brian Hardin. All right, I've been wanting to do this pod for a while. Get my friend Brian Hardin from Drake in here. How you doing, sir?
Great.
Welcome.
Great digs. This is awesome.
Well, I told you we need some blue in here.
Yeah. Besides the Yang, because the Yang jersey there. Yeah. That's not enough blue. I guess you got Burton's up there too.
Well, we
in
did.
The city.
I did wear a blue sweater. for you guys today.
Thank you.
It's not the royal blue. I know, but I was trying.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, I wore all black. I got my Campbell collection on today for you guys. So
looks great.
Yeah, just trying to fit in here.
And then I've got Ryan Boatman from the Do Great Collective. I think your deal is fascinating right now. I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, welcome to the show. Yeah. You guys are having a great year. It's been fun to follow. Big game obviously is coming up on Sunday, but I kind of wanted to, in the spirit of this whole thing, this is kind of a business podcast, and the way I would probably describe this particular podcast. And I'm really interested in the life of a mid-major athletic director and collective in 2025, because that seems challenging. That seems
every day is a new adventure. And even today it's like, okay, what's it going to bring? And I've got an email from the NCAA on an interpretation that will help us kind of figure out some stuff here moving forward potentially. And so it's like this is uncharted territory for a lot of us. So we're making the most of it. So, but yeah, I'm happy to let's talk through it here today.
Well, Ryan, how did you get roped into this deal? I always tell people these.
How much time do you have?
I always tell people, these collective guys, you need to go up and shake their hand.
Oh my gosh,
it is a thankless line of work.
It is. They are the angels for our department right now.
How did this all come about for you?
Well, a couple of years ago, a guy that I went to school with, a friend, asked me to kind of help out, and so. In 2008, that I was going to go to Drake. And then obviously the team in 08 kind of
pushed you over.
Yeah. Put the cherry on top. And so, and just kind of stuck around the program ever since. So,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So Brian, I don't think that most people, when they watch like a Valley game, are necessarily thinking about the NIL component. At least I'm not.
Yeah, sure.
Because I'm used to like in the Big 12, and you're just guessing like, oh, how many millions is that guy making or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The more I've learned about what you all are doing, I'm just impressed, honestly, because it's like you don't. But how prevalent is it? Like when you're talking to coaches, when you had to hire Ben. Like, are they asking about it? Like, how prevalent is it at that level?
Yeah. I mean, 6 years ago or 7 years ago now when we hired Aaron, I mean, it never came up because it wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. And then the last cycle when we're hiring coaches, almost every interview is kind of, okay, what's the situation like? And some of them had done their homework and kind of already were familiar with kind of where we're at. And they knew that we jumped into the mix, the help of our Do Great Collective. We've been in the top quarter of our league, every year that we've had this thing going here. So we've been anywhere from probably first to fourth, and that was a huge part of it for Ben. I mean, I think that you ask him, he said that his confidence in the alignment of the university, the people who were kind of leading it, combined with what we had in terms of the commitment from our fans to want to win, and what they had seen, how that had helped. Our program over the past 6 years, really, in especially the last few years when this has been permissible, really kind of helped separate it from other jobs that were out there.
You've been in college athletics for how long now?
Oh gosh, well, I graduated college in 2002, and so we're going on 23 years minus the 3 years I worked for the Bears. So I guess 20 years at various stops along the way, from Loyola to schools like Notre Dame for 7 to Ball State and Marquette in here. So private, public, mid-majors, blue bloods. So a mixture.
Yeah. Did you ever, I think we all kind of knew we were going to get to a point at some point where players would get paid.
Yeah.
Did you ever think it would look like this?
No. No. And I, and honestly, it's taken me some time to get on board with it. I'm just being honest. I don't like some of the stuff that's going on out there. But I also have to weigh it. Okay, which do I like less? Kind of what's happening with college athletics or losing? And I hate to lose. And so this is permissible. This is the way the game is being played. We can either sit by and try to say, hey, we're not going to be involved in that space, and try to, and that's great. And there's certainly some folks that want to do that. I view it as an opportunity for us to punch above our weight class. And so I think we can kind of jump in and do some things that maybe we couldn't do before. And so I view it as an opportunity. And that's been kind of, unfortunately, we found some other folks around our program that view it the same way. And that's allowed us to maybe do some things that we haven't been able to do at Drake in a while.
From a bird's eye view, Ryan, you probably have a better understanding of this than anyone because you've been a Drake fan for so long. But I do feel I've seen with Iowa State, like there's a certain level of fanatic out there that they like donating to a collective because they feel like what they're doing directly impacts the success of the team. Right or wrong. Some coaches spend the money the wrong way. Like it's not it's not a guarantee.
There's case studies. We've beaten some teams this year where they probably spent money the wrong way. So,
yes, absolutely.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's not just a money wins scenario, but I do feel I've always felt like there was like this, and over the years we've all seen Drake's fan base grow. Like the Knapp Center is like a cool place to hang out, where 10 years ago it was not. Like it was, people made fun of it, frankly.
Sure.
But there's this like core level of Drake fans that I do feel like being in a city gives you an advantage to a lot of those teams in the league. And I don't know, like, is that accurate? Like there's this level of like Drake fanatics. It may not be huge, but where are you finding the most success, I guess, when you're out there trying to raise funds for the Do Great Collective?
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
because this is just how I view it.
You're spot on. I mean, this was a grassroots thing. Our core fan base kind of propped this up with Kyle Mertz, the founder, a couple years ago, and
this wasn't some like huge donor that was like
no.
Okay. Yeah.
No. I mean, we've got close to 100 people that are given on a monthly basis now, which for a school our size is
that's significant.
It's significant, and you know we've got larger donors as well, but I mean there's more of them given smaller amounts.
Yeah,
and that's special. And if we continue to grow that part of it, I think the sky's the limit for us.
Yeah, the city aspect too, Brian. I know that's something that you identified right when you got here.
Oh
it's
yeah,
just like
that's
the biggest compliment I can give you guys is that Drake is cool now. Honestly, it wasn't. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Like I never viewed it as that. It's just like just being a guy who lived in Des Moines, I would go to the Knapp Center if like Wichita was ranked. To check it out. But like and now just go and like have a couple of beers, watch a great team. You
Absolutely.
know, like that. You identified that really early on.
Right away. I mean, it's you look at our league and kind of where our membership resides, where their campuses are. And I think that we've got the best situation out of everyone in the Missouri Valley Conference because we're the third largest city in our league, but UIC is in Chicago and Belmont's in Nashville. Those are pro sports towns with a lot of other things to do, with a lot of other competition on the collegiate side, but also on the pro sports side. And so you take that away, like Iowa is a college sports state. It's not a pro sport. And people here will support pro sports teams, but they love the Cyclones, they love the Hawks, they love if they're transplants or probably, but some other school. How do we get Drake into the mix there? And so like, okay, let's identify kind of what is a strength for us. And I think that's where we're located because we're not in a smaller college town or it's a population. We've got 800,000 plus people that live within a half hour of our campus. Let's tap into that. So I think that's such a unique part, I think, of what Drake is, what it can become, because we've seen Des Moines go through this renaissance over the past 25 years. And Drake is trying to play catch up to that, both in terms of what the Drake neighborhood looks like, which now is way cooler than it was even when I started here 7 years ago. I think what Dogtown is now with the restaurants and the bars there and what's coming here over the next couple of years, that's just going to continue to grow. We're trying to do our part in Drake Athletics to add to that, and having a successful basketball programs is central to having a thriving athletics department.
Yeah, well, you nailed it because you're winning too.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's what you want to come watch winners, and and so trying to get folks to be excited to come out to watch their team. Like, Iowa State. I mean, I think what I love about Iowa State fans is that they show up just because Iowa State's playing. There are some other schools in our state where they show up only if the team is winning or based on who their school is playing.
Yeah.
And like where we're continuing to shift the Drake fans is that they're now more than before starting to show up just because Drake is playing. And that's what Iowa State fans do. Like, it doesn't matter who they're playing, what the weather is, what sport it is. They're out there having a presence. Like, how do we shift to that? How can we get that? And we've got 25,000 alumni that live in central Iowa from Drake, that is. And then we've got a bunch of transplants to our area that may not have an allegiance to Iowa State or to Iowa. So how can we convince them that the access, the affordability, and the proximity of Des Moines' hometown team is where they should be spending their time and dollars and attention? And I think that we've made some inroads in that space, and certainly the more that we can do is going to help benefit the department, but also our collective.
You've even done cool things like the uniforms.
Yeah.
It stands out to me.
Yeah. I mean, uniforms, the beer stuff, we got to find some ways to just kind of make ourselves distinct in the marketplace, and we're not going to be afraid to fail. We tried something. We tried a happy hour a couple weeks ago on a Friday and a Saturday before a women's game and a men's game. Brought in some live music, opened the doors early for fans to come in and have some drinks and kind of check out a new part of the Napa Center that we had just renovated over the past few months. And that was well attended, but it's like we know we can do better, and so we're going to keep trying to find ways that we can kind of just kind of invite people down, see what's happening at Drake. Maybe they haven't been on our campus. Maybe they haven't been down here in a while, and they'll be pleasantly surprised when they walk into the Napa Center and kind of see the renovations that we've had, and then they see the product on the court. Like, dang, like this is actually that pretty good product.
I know it didn't end the way we wanted to last Sunday, but that was a great game, right?
Sure.
Like the basketball in the Valley is like it's awesome right now.
It's great. I talk with a lot of folks afterwards, like because there's a lot of breathlessness, like, oh my gosh, the skies like. It's a 2-point home loss against a really good team that was almost a unanimous pick to win the league, which they should have been because they returned like their entire roster. They were going to only schools in our league that returned everybody in their starting lineup, and so they are a really good team and they are a huge threat. And if they get to March Madness, no one's going to want to see them on their side of the bracket.
No.
So we lost a tough game at home. Okay, that was our third loss of the year. We're still in a great spot. The resume metrics within the net love us. And having served on the football selection committee, I know that we don't live game to game as a committee member when we're evaluating teams. It's that total body of work phrase that everybody hears. And so if you take a step back, disappointed that we didn't win that game in front of a sold-out house. But we built a 2-game lead for a reason in the conference. We're still in a good spot, and we've got everything that we want to accomplish is still in front of us. We still kind of control everything that we want to do. So, let's learn from it. I think it made us better. We played a heck of a lot better the other day. We scored the first 21 points on Wednesday.
That was incredible.
So they came out with a different mindset.
Score.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And
I didn't get to watch that live. I was out doing some kid stuff, and I checked it was like 17-0 or whatever. I'm like, that can't even be right. Is that good stuff.
We had Woodley coach that game. So we get it.
I love the football hire, by the way.
Oh, he's gonna be great.
Yeah, come on, that's a perfect hire.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously biased.
He's that guy is Des Moines.
Oh my gosh, yeah. His whole family. I mean, they're part of the state, and that's part of kind of what we're doing. You look at kind of where we're at as a department. This is the first time in Drake's history that we've had Iowans who are the men's basketball coach, the women's basketball coach, the football coach, the Drake Relays director, and the athletic director. All of us are native Iowans. We all grew up here.
That's cool.
We all know.
I never thought about it like that.
And we all know what Drake was before we took the job. So we have an appreciation for maybe what it's been, what it can be, and kind of where we need to go to and try to get it there. So we go to bed sleeping about it. We wake up thinking about it. It's not just another job for the five of us. Like it means a little bit more.
That's cool. The McCollum hire was inspired too. I thought my mom and sister are both Northwest Missouri State grads.
Oh yeah. So then you have the inside scoop then.
I actually called a couple of Bearcat games when really early in my career.
Really?
I was like their backup guy when I was down doing radio in Southwest Iowa. So whenever like their football team would be, back in the day was a lot. Yeah. Playing for a championship, they would every once in a while. I get called out of the bullpen, and I'd drive up there and drive down there and do a Northwest way before Ben was there. But that walk me through that, because you take this D2 legend, right? And I remember at the time I'm thinking like, wow, that excited me because I have a tie to Northwest Missouri State. Mm-hmm. But I was also like, oh, why has he been at D2 for that long? Right? Yeah. I didn't realize even he was from Iowa at that time.
Sure.
So once I put all the pieces together, but what popped for you, like when Darren leaves? And
yeah, it goes back to in my day 102 on the job for me when I first got here. Nico leaves, so we've got an opening to figure out who's going to be our next head coach. We end up ultimately hiring Darren DeVries from Creighton, but one of the coaches that I interviewed was Ben McCollum. And so I interviewed Ben back then. This is before he had won all the national titles, but he was having some success. And I kind of wanted to get a sense. And I'd heard from some folks, hey, he knows what he's talking about. And so we interviewed, and he did a great job. Really liked him a lot. Obviously with Darren at that moment. But Ben and I stayed close. I mean, we were friendly there, and we would talk 2 or 3 times a year. He would text me, call me about certain jobs that had reached out to him. He was interviewing for certain jobs. He was offered many jobs, and he just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on it? And so I said, okay, well, here's what I would be asking, if I were in your shoes, you need to know about the alignment piece. You want to know about the support piece. And then, of course, as we got in the last couple of years, when he was offered some jobs where he was offered more money than what we're paying him here at Drake. I said, you need to know, okay, how important is basketball there? That school, I know that school is investing in football, and their AD came from a bigger school who had a football background. Are you going to be working with that person, or are you going to be working with somebody else? And if you're reporting to somebody else in the administration, does that person have the juice to get stuff done for you, or not? How committed? So just arming him with those questions. And then last year, as things kind of unfolded, and I kind of got a sense that maybe there's going to be an opportunity that Darren's going to want to pursue. He and I had already been having some conversations about just some other opportunities that people were presenting to him. And I needed him to kind of maybe slow down some of those conversations a little bit, just because our position wasn't open just yet. And so he's had to kind of, hold on, and so we're able to do that. But then as we kind of got into it, I mean, it was clear that he was going to be a great fit for us. I've talked to Jamie about this multiple times in my time, just kind of what, his hiring practices, and there are just some things that he's done in terms of trying to build up Iowa State when he first got here, then things that he's learned from hiring. He's had some great ones and maybe some misses, and what he's learned from that. And that's kind of helped me in terms of thinking, all right, when we're adding somebody into our campus, what should we be looking for? And it's really just kind of, who do you want to be around with every day? Who do you want to go through life with? And who's going to represent us the right way? There are a lot of ways to win games in a variety of sports. So making sure that we're having the right people in place. And Ben was that. Ben fits us very well. He is really well respected. I mean, he's got connections all over. I talked to a number of high major coaches that we'd all be familiar with, and they have great respect for his X's and O's. More so is kind of what he does to develop players. And I really believe, Drake, you got to be a developmental program. You got to know who you are and who you aren't. And folks were going to come in here. And he was a D2 coach, but he was always going to see Drake for what it is, not for what it wasn't. And that's important to me, also.
And if you watch if you watch those Northwest teams, D2, whatever, like those are really good teams. Oh, those D2 teams would beat a lot of D1 teams.
He took a D2 team down to Cameron and played Duke to the last 4 minutes of the game. Yeah. And when Coach K was there.
Mac took one of his guys at Creighton, turned him into an All-American or whatever.
Yes, exactly. That kid from Atlanta. Ryan Hawkins. And so there are a number of these guys. And so the D2 has like this connotation attached to it unnecessarily. You can play. I mean, there are players at every level. There are coaches at every level. There are amazing high school coaches in the state that are probably better than some of our college coaches.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
And so, same with athletic directors. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Would you agree with me here? I would make the argument that a lot of the coaching, like X's and O's, might even be more important at the D2 level in many cases. Because you don't have just guys playing above the rim all the time.
Correct. Absolutely. Putting your guys in position, developing that talent. So that's where I knew that it'd be successful. He's showing it. He brought his group with him to kind of help accelerate kind of the learning curve. But his plans were like, how we're going to build rosters and how we can win in the future. That's why I've got confidence that we can continue to stay on top. But in today's world, we need folks like Ryan in our collective, because that is just a piece of the equation that didn't exist before, that is just as important, if not more so, than a lot of the other things that we offer in our program.
Well, and that's funny, because Ryan, I was just going to bring this up to you, because you're a fan and you're also out there fundraising, but it's hard to do if everybody hates the coach. Yeah. Like I've talked to people. Point being, he seems like a good fit in the sense of when you walk into the Knapp Center and everybody's wearing a blue tie, and he just seems likable to that core group of fans that you're specifically trying to reach.
Yeah.
Why is that? What's so relatable about him to you guys?
I think he's just super approachable. He's just, he's an Iowa guy.
Yeah.
And he's really easy to talk to, get along with. I remember when he showed up to our banquet last year, it was kind of a unique situation. The team was all kind of in the portal, and we were trying to celebrate the successes of the team that we had last year. And he's working the room, talking to everybody, and nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
And there were some people that were skeptical.
Really?
Yeah.
I never saw any of those emails or tweets.
And I think he put a lot of that to rest early just by, talking to people and getting to know him. And he's made my job very easy.
Well, the fit thing though, it just Brian, it's always been a big deal in college athletics, but it just feels even more important now. Cause the thing is, especially in your guys' case, and I have so much respect for mid and low major coaches and administrators, because you not only have to re-recruit your coach every year, and that's always been the case. Because if you're good, people want your guy.
Yep.
It's the case. That's the case everywhere. I mean, Matt Campbell and Jamie have been doing that forever.
Yep.
But now, you have to re-recruit your own roster, and it really is at every level, unless you're North Carolina or Duke or, at the high top end.
Even then, when North Carolina lost a kid to Arizona.
You're right. You get poached then.
Yeah.
That's a great point. But that, man, I just feel like that fit is even more important now, because that is the one thing that you can kind of carry over, right?
Yeah,
if you bring in a bad fit, it kind of just, you have to start all over from the bottom.
It is, yeah. Understanding kind of who our fan base is, who's going to resonate with them, and kind of represent us. Again, it goes back, Jamie made a comment at one point early on in my time. He said one of the things he learned was that to be a head coach at Iowa State, you got to be able to be on that bus tour, go around the state. Their summers, they don't do golf events at country clubs, and they know who they are, and you've got to be able to sit on a bus and drive to different stops in small town Iowa and get out and be able to press the flesh and do that with normal everyday Iowans, and that is important at Iowa State. And not every coach that's been in there is being able to do that, but the good ones are great at it. And for us, it's trying to understand, okay, where do we fit? Because we're kind of a hybrid of maybe what the Iowa base is and what the Iowa State base is. We got to have a little bit of each of that. And so finding guys and women who can kind of come in and who are comfortable in their own skin, and can get in there and can show up at our basketball banquet over at Prairie Meadows last year, having been on the job for 48 hours and walk around the room and introduce themselves and find some common ground to connect on, was really important. And that was a great start. And that's when you look at, that's why Joe Wildey's going to be great. That's why Darren was great. That's why Jenny Bronchick was great. That's why Allison Pullman is great. That's why Blake Boldens does a great job, because we can all just kind of come in and we're just normal folks who want to be as successful at their job coaching as a lot of our alumni are successful at their occupation. And then we'll bond over this love for wanting to have a great basketball, football, relays, whatever it is. And then let's work together to make it happen.
So we've got this house settlement and all this stuff coming up. And I feel like we still don't really know what the rules are. How does it impact Drake? Because,
oh my gosh.
Well, we hear about it, but you guys aren't going to be hitting some $22 million max thing, right? So
maybe combined over the next decade.
That's my point. We hear about that at the big conferences.
Yeah.
How does that impact you guys? And because I don't really understand the role of a collective in a year from now. I think I don't know if anybody does.
I mean, the collectives still have a role, even at the high Power 4, top 2 level. I mean, because just look at it in these terms. I mean, Ohio State allegedly spent $20 million on their football roster last year. Well, this year, the number that the school can share from revenue is $20.5 million.
Yeah.
They're going to spend probably $15-16 million of that on their roster. Ohio State just won a national title. Are those players taking a pay cut next year? But no, so they'll have to be made whole somehow. So even the collective at Ohio State will need to find $5 to $8 to $10 million as the cherry on top for what the school is going to share through the $20.5 million in shared revenue. And that will trickle its way down through a lot of other programs and throughout the country. For us, where it matters is we have to make the decision if we opt in or opt out. And even like this week, without getting too deep in the weeds, because I'll really bore your audience here, but there were...
I don't know. We're geeks, man.
All right. Well,
Yeah. This is a different pod. Like,
yeah. So, I mean, I we're taping this on Friday. I literally learned in the last 24 hours that there is an ability for schools to opt in to not have to worry about reducing their roster so long as they don't share revenue, which was like completely foreign to myself and a lot of our other colleagues, that you could opt in. Because one of the concerns for a lot of schools like Drake and even schools like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and those programs is that if you opt in, you have to live by the new roster caps. And so
yes,
for football, that means you can't have more than 105 players on your roster. So at Drake, Coach Woodley's planning on having 115 to 120 guys on our roster next year. If we were to opt in, we'd have to reduce those numbers. And there are some other sport programs, namely for us, soccer and volleyball, that are a little bit over this new roster cap that we would need to bring down. We need to have a certain number of student athletes at Drake because we are a tuition-driven institution.
Yep.
And so for the school...
Yeah, you can't... That's one thing people don't get. You can't just cut 5 sports.
No. Oh, gosh, no.
Yeah. But like, I think some fans think that. Like, oh, well, you can't do that and stay D1. And
right.
Yeah.
Right. There's a certain number of sports you have to have. There's a certain level of commitment and investment you have to have. And so for us, like, we've been weighing, okay, if we... essentially we said we'll probably stay out of the fray in the first year while we see what type of Title IX lawsuits happen and while we try to get our rosters in order. And by that, I mean, we will ramp up a couple of our sports, rowing, track and field, to account for maybe some of the roster spots that we would lose in some of those other sports to get down to the new roster cap limits. In order for us to do that, and still provide the type of experience and opportunities through our basketball programs, because we wouldn't be sharing the revenue piece in that first year, that's where the collective comes into play for us. And so for us to be able to kind of maintain where we're at with our women playing for first place on Saturday against Missouri State, with our men currently with the game league going into this weekend, for us to do that next year, we need to make sure that we have the opportunity to retain and recruit the current talent that we have or others out there. And that's where the collective is going to come in for Drake.
Will you clarify to... I know what this is, but to our audience, there's a lot of terminology here. Opt in, opt out.
Yeah,
what exact? Because we don't hear that again when we're talking Iowa and Iowa State. Everybody's opting in.
They have to. They're required to. They're defendants in the lawsuit, and so they don't have a choice.
Correct.
Yeah, there is no opt in or opt out button for them to hit. So. The House settlement, if you've covered that before.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, so you know...
They know what that is.
You know what that is. Okay, so
for those who don't, it's the $20.5 million, and then there's back pay and all that.
Right, that's been... Those are the terms of it. Yeah, there's the back pay component, which let's not get into, because then all my blood will really start to boil. And then there's the forward-looking piece, which is that's where the shared revenue component comes in, and it's 20.5 in year one, and that will increase with each subsequent year. You arrive at that 20.5 figure because that is the average amount of revenue of Power 4 schools. And so obviously 20.5 means something different to Iowa State as it does to Ohio State, but that's going to be the number that everyone's going to work with. Okay. So you can choose to, and those Power 4 schools that were all defendants in the lawsuit have to opt in. It becomes permissive legislation for the rest of Division I. So they can choose to opt in and provide some of those benefits, which is sharing revenue with student athletes, increasing scholarships up to a certain number. Basically, it takes away all the headcount scholarships, and now you can have 105 football players all on scholarship if you wanted to. I'm not sure many are doing that, but you could do that. And then increasing Alston funds. So this is all part of the permissive legislation. So all the schools and conferences outside of the Power 4 have to decide by March 1st whether they're going to opt in to the new House settlement terms and be able to provide some of these new benefits, or not opt in. And we were just sent a survey. Athletic directors at all Division I schools were just sent an email this week with a link to click on the survey to declare what their intent is by March 1st. Now, the March 1st thing is a total joke to begin with, because we're saying we're going to opt in to and accept terms of that settlement that haven't even been
you don't even know
accepted
what it is
yet. No, April 7th is the day for that.
Yeah.
And so, but that's that's for another podcast.
Yeah.
So then schools have to all make a decision whether they're going to opt in. Primarily all football schools, so the group of 5, all of them are opting in. Primarily a lot of the schools where that if they don't have football, if they aren't concerned about the roster piece, they're jumping into the fray. All the Big East is going to jump into the mix there. The top half of the Atlantic 10 are going to be in there. Most of the West Coast Conference are going to be in that space. Our league, Missouri Valley, is half and half right now. And because there are some schools, Bradley and Belmont, that don't have football, that it makes sense for them to jump in because they may not be losing a ton of student athletes on their campus. Illinois State will be losing north of 45 student athletes if they were to choose to opt in. Drake would be north of 20, and so those all have real implications on the bottom line of the institution from a tuition standpoint. So now, what has changed in the last 2 days is that what I kind of said before is up until Wednesday and then yesterday got confirmation from the NCAA that I'd always been under the impression that if you opt in, you have to reduce your rosters and it gives you the chance to share revenue. Now, what I'm hearing is, no, you don't have to reduce your rosters so long as you don't share revenue. So you're doing it, and it could protect you potentially in case the rules change after April 7th or at some point thereafter, that you've signified that you're going to opt in for the next year. And so long as we don't share anything from Drake University, then we're still fine. We still have 115 players on the roster. So the purpose of the collective still is critically important for us in this next year. So I sent a follow-up question because I want to dive down a little bit deeper on something like, does that mean that once our rosters for our fall sports fall under the roster limits, December graduation, we will have a number of football players who will graduate, soccer, volleyball who will graduate and or exhaust their eligibility. So our numbers will fall below what the roster caps are. Does that mean in the spring semester that we're then able to jump in and be able to kind of share revenue? And the response back was that they don't know that yet, that they're still working through that. So yes, so
kind of hard to make a decision then.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, we can jump in and that process will play itself out. But to your larger point, like we are building the plane as we're driving down the runway right now. That's true for everybody at the NCAA right now. All the schools and even the folks who are interpreting the rules, who are the folks in Indianapolis.
Chris, can I say something?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's so important that this is grassroots for Drake, because all this stuff, the complicated stuff, Ryan can then take down to the minute level and just say, "Hey, you just have to be a fan for $25."
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're good. Again, bird's eye view. I have a perception in my mind that just basketball speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So throw football out for a minute. That these programs like Creighton and Villanova are in like this Marquette are in this amazing spot going forward because they don't have the competition for funds. Do you buy into that? And Drake's weird because you guys have football, but it's non-scholarship football. So it's like, I don't know how to.
Well, in our league, the Pioneer Football League, we've already made the determination that we cannot share revenue with football.
Okay.
So that we've already come up.
So
like Dayton, Butler, Davidson, Drake, St. Thomas, all those schools, we've already made the decision that shared revenue cannot occur with football.
Okay. I didn't know that part of it.
Yep. So that's off the table. I understand that narrative is out there with those Big East schools.
Yeah.
For those, oh my gosh, they can spend $20 million just on basketball.
Well, even like Dayton, like those people are nuts. Like those Dayton fans, like they're obsessed. They love their basketball.
They do.
Right?
They are very passionate, very loyal. They travel everywhere and they want to win.
Yeah.
The difference though is that they don't have like the revenue coming in from their TV contract and from their games isn't the same as the revenue coming in for those schools that have football stadiums to fill in football contracts. Now, but you're right. I mean, they have an ability to do more, and I think that's where we see. I mean, we've probably heard the same type of numbers thrown out there in terms of what schools are spending right now and what they're projected to spend, and so there are probably some of those programs, Creighton and Villanova, and those places that are going to be at pretty significant number. But it still comes down to how are you spending it? You know, are you getting the right people in place there? Do you have the right coach, the right people who can identify talent? Because there's a lot of bad contracts out there where players are just making way too much, and it kills the market when that happens.
It's a little bit like just your personal finances, right, Mr. CPA over here? I mean, if you're smart with your money and you make $50,000 a year, and you invest it and you don't have a lot of debt, like you can be very wealthy by the time you're 60. But if you compare to the guy who's making maybe 200 and drives a truck with a $1,200 a month payment, you know, right? Like a lot of this, like when I look at it, like just because you're spending a lot in this space doesn't mean you're going to win.
You know, budgeting is really important.
Yeah.
And that's why I talked about recurring revenue. Having people that are giving on a consistent monthly basis helps us budget.
Yeah.
And kind of gives us an idea of where we're at. And yeah, I mean, we obviously identifying talent and people that fit in the program is critical, you know, no matter what number he or she are at. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can make a lot of bad contracts. We've seen them.
How prevalent are agents at this level?
Very.
Okay.
Yeah, and not agents necessarily in the typical sense. There's a lot of uncles, AAU coaches that are helping their kids and trying to get the best deal for their kids.
I do feel
I'll challenge the notion that they're helping the kids.
Well,
like I will. There are some that are helping the kids.
Right.
There are others who claim to be helping the kids, but they're providing advice that isn't either in the kids' best interests, or I mean, there are still some bad actors out there
for sure.
There's some real reporting out there too about the criminal borderline activity of some of these agents with the percentages that they're taking from these kids.
Oh, well, because they're marketing agents, so they can take up to 20%.
Yeah,
as opposed to like an NBA agent is capped at like 3% or something
like that. Yeah. It's really sad. My background, Ryan, and I think you know this, Brian, but I worked for Scout way back in the day and then Rivals for a while. And I used to just call the college basketball scene just the cesspool, that AAU, the uncles thing. Like you know, because these guys were, I thought maybe when all this happened, it would take a little bit of power away from those people, but it doesn't feel like it. We're really heading that direction.
It may have shifted it just to somebody else, but they're still handlers and folks out there that are trying to get in there and move kids around. And
do you how much do you hear tough, Brian, of coaches that you know, like where agents are getting involved in a date? My guy needs to play more, I'm going to move him. I've heard that.
I haven't had that conversation. I haven't asked that question, and it hasn't been volunteered to me. Yeah. I certainly could probably understand that. I mean, I've had coaches before say just how things have changed, how it's like it's harder to coach kids, harder in practice, because you get on a kid a couple days in a row and they're going to go back to the locker after practice and text their guy, hey, I want to get out of here for this year. Yeah. Start sending out the feelers. It's tough for the coach. I mean, I'm not sure it's ever been harder to be a college coach than it is right now.
Yeah, especially with the calendar, the way it's set up.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Some of these football guys,
the work-life balance is just non-existent, and and then what you have to deal with recruiting initially, and then constantly re-recruiting your guys and trying to fend off other folks, and now keeping an eye out on what else is out there that we need to be in that space to be mindful of. Hearing, you have to have somebody on your staff who's maybe aware of who is about to go in there, because you need to know who's going in the portal before they're actually in there. Because if you aren't, it's too late. And it's just like it's a different space.
That's always the interesting part to me, because I wouldn't say I'm pro portal. I'm pro players being able to have choices.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I've seen, unfortunately, is that a lot of times the choices they make, there's not that landing spot that they think is going to be there. And whereas if they stay at a program, they could have developed, they have an education at the very least. Worst case scenario, you're a 5-year guy and you don't play a lot, but you have an education and you were a part of a team and you had all this, and then they end up transferring and they don't land on their feet.
We can point to a lot of guys in the Valley. I mean, last year we had 16 guys that were first, second, or third team all league. And we had some who graduated, but only one returned. Only Duke Dean and Bradley returned. Everybody else went somewhere else. And we can point to some examples of some guys who were first, second, third team in the Valley last year who got convinced that they needed to leave, and they are playing a fraction of minutes and getting no real good film that's going to help them get that job after school. Whereas if they had stayed, they would have played 30 plus minutes, put up a lot of points, and developed that tape that's going to help them get that job after college. And really, I mean, that's part of going to college, is to get that life experience so that it prepares you for what comes next. And a lot of these guys, are using this is a long internship, or they're developing a portfolio where if you're a journalism major, you're going to put together a portfolio. Well, the portfolio for an athlete is your game tape.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to help you get that next job.
Yeah.
So, that's something that, I feel for those guys, because they probably had somebody in their ear saying, oh, go to this school and this will help you get to where you need to get. And more times than not, if you look at the folks who have left the Valley, it hasn't worked out for them.
Is that a sell? Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Is that a selling point to you guys? Like, Ryan, when you're talking to these, because the way I look at Drake, it's like, man, it's a world-class institution. Like, you're not only are you playing basketball at a high level, but
you're getting a great education.
Yeah. Like that can't,
that's again, part of the package.
I think the players should get paid some, like all the, but we can't lose the educational aspect of it too. Like that has to still be a part of the conversation.
Yeah. So whenever I talk with prospective student athletes and their families, I always remind them, like, the college decision, it's not a 4-year choice, it's a 40-year choice. What's going to set you up to have success for the rest of your life? And I can point to example, Roman Penn, Darnell Brody, who stuck it out, and they got successful contracts playing over in Europe because they were able to send over a bunch of tape and said, this is who we are. Where if they had left going into their last year, like they had opportunities to, they would not have had that type of tape. They would not have had the experiences. They would not have the relationships that they were able to form here. I mean, these are folks who love Des Moines, that will come back in the offseason and be part of our community, that will give back to Des Moines. So I do think that that's a huge part of it here at Drake, is that you can have it all at a school like Drake. You've got the academic component, you've got the athletic component, and the social component for being in Des Moines. That's what helps it. That it's different here than it will be somewhere else. And you've got a great fan base that will be here to support you, will take care of you while you're here, but also won't forget about you. And you've got this alumni network that wants to help you post-graduation.
Yeah. That's the thing too. I think we're going to miss out on a lot with the portal, is these players that would be there for 4 years and the fans kind of watch them grow up. Yeah. And it didn't matter what kind of a player they were, they'd have a job in the community just waiting for them. Because and everybody says student athletes are the best ones to hire because of the discipline and that it takes. And I do think, we're going to look back 10 years from now, and that's not going to be as big of a component of the college athlete experience because of the portal. Because you just don't, as a community, you don't have a connection to a guy who's there for, like, Tyrese Halliburton's a great example. Best personality, major star. There's 4-year guys at Iowa State that were half the player that he is, like, because he just wasn't there as long and he didn't do anything wrong. He went and became a lottery pick and, did all that stuff. But that's the one thing I hate about the portal is I grew up an Iowa fan rooting for Jess Settles. Yeah. And he was there for 6 years, right? And you
only
felt
6?
Yeah. Settles, but you felt like he was your big brother.
Yeah.
By the time it was over.
He and DJ Wilkins run the same plan.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
I do. I
hate that about this.
I grew up the same way. And it's like you build a connection. And now it's like when you combine the portal and the dollars available, you run the risk of some guys becoming mercenaries and just becoming the hired help and kind of going wherever it is. We've been successful. We don't try to keep folks here and where they haven't had to go somewhere. And we know that because of the work of the collective the past couple of years, that we had some athletes who had opportunities to do some other stuff that we were able to know that we want you to earn the degree from Drake, and let's make sure that it's worth your time to stay here.
And that's where you come in right now, Ryan. Right? It's like it's a kind of good team this year. Hopefully, going to make the tournament, do all these big things. Is it like retention time? Where's your mindset at?
Yeah, I think the primary focus of the collective is to retain the talent that we have and continue to develop it. And I tell people this all the time, not just for Drake, not just for our athletic programs, but for our city. It's important to keep these people here in Des Moines. They're special. and they're going to be really productive members of our community someday. We want them to have a good experience, and we want them to stay here.
Yeah, and then so you've talked about the importance of like getting these recurring members and adding those. But so how else do you guys? You do events. You brought this basketball. I wanted to help you promote what you got coming up and all that good stuff because I know it's a big time of year for you.
Yeah, our biggest fundraiser for the year is our annual end of year banquet, and that's going to be on April 15th at Prairie Meadows.
Right after the national championship game, right?
Right after the national championship game.
It's a big day for you professionally.
Yep. And it's also tax day.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
No rest for me.
Everything comes to a head that
You're loading a lot
Go
on there,
vacation
buddy.
afterwards.
Man.
And I think it's from 5:30 to 8, and we'll do some silent auction stuff during a cocktail hour. We'll have a bunch of team signed gear and merch available for that.
I feel like those jerseys, man, those baby blues, those things just got to go like crazy.
Yeah, that and the Des Moines jerseys. I mean,
Yeah, the Des Moines
touch.
ones.
Yeah, we've got a couple unique items in our collection.
For sure.
The baby blue stuff, like I know it's not like your primary, but those things are sick.
Yeah, I love them.
I
mean, I'm biased because we kind of helped bring them back a few years ago, but I just think that I know that there have been some other places who have kind of created something like it, but in my mind, there's nothing better. I mean, it just is.
Yeah,
Best jersey in sports.
Fantastic.
I don't think I disagree because the old Charger baby blues.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a sucker for baby blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Carolinas, like I just love it all.
You bring it out every so often. Don't want to overdo it.
Yeah.
It can't be your primary, but it's
Like our blacks.
it's a great.
Maybe a little overboard on the Iowa State black a little bit, but
I'll let you touch that one. I'll stay in my lane.
I love it. I'm fine with it, but yeah, I'll still give them shit about it though. So that's how it works. Well, this is great, and
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
I want you to know that your friends here and whatever we can do to, if you want to come on before the 15th and push that again. And Brian, I love your perspective too, because we don't get it enough. The reporting nationally isn't on the mid and low major level.
Sure.
And that's really important. Like when we talk about like March Madness that's coming up, that's what makes March Madness. Oh, I did have one other question.
Yeah.
If they expand this field,
Sure.
is that good for Drake? Is that good for the Valley, or will it just be stacking more 500 high major? Because that's the worst thing we could do.
Agreed. Yeah, nobody wants to see a sub 500 conference from a Power Four league in there.
I've seen that UCF team. I don't need to see them again.
Right.
Right. Like I know what it.
I'm with you. No, so as long as we're not, saying, hey, that if it expands to 72 or 76, and you're able to, that ensures that Drake can go to Arch Madness and not have to win it. That when you got a
That's
special
what
team,
sucks.
because Indiana State totally got screwed over last year.
Yeah.
And there's been other schools like that they should be in ahead of these schools that have 8, 10, 12, 14 quad 1, quad 2 opportunities, and they win 2 of them or 3 of them. It's like, all right, you had your chance, get out of here. Somebody else is going to come in here now. So I think I'm on board with that. This is going to be it.
Do you trust
I may
them?
get in trouble for this one, but I wouldn't mind even seeing if you took the top 72 or 76 and just eliminated AQs altogether and just said, we're just going to take the top 76 teams in basketball. And now that kills off a lot of the low major
The
stuff.
SWAC, those
So
teams
you're
aren't
going to run
gonna-
into trouble there.
Yeah.
But then it's like something like that, I think actually really benefits the Valley because we will have 2 or 3 teams in the top 76
There's no
each
doubt.
year.
Yeah.
No, but you're going to. So anyways, that's a whole different concept. The idea of 72 or 76, I think I'm on board with, so long as we don't get those teams that we're talking, because that's the biggest objection, I believe, is nobody wants to see some of those power conference teams who finish in the bottom half with a losing conference record.
Not even the power conference people want to watch those games.
Because that's not Cinderella. That's not. And the charm of the tournament in the first first weekend, first 2 rounds are those Cinderella squads, and then you want to see the Blue Bloods advance to the Final Four. That helps the ratings, and I get that, but I do think that to be able to ensure that an opportunity for those second place, third place teams in those really good mid-major. And the Valley is a 8th, 9th, 10th best league in America this year. We've got 3. I think Northern Iowa can win games in March. I think that Bradley can. I think that Drake can. If Belmont gets out there, a great offensive team. But there are 3 teams this year at the top of the Valley on the men's side. and there's 6 on the women's that all can win 2 games, at least 2 games in this year's tournament. It'd be great to see those teams, get that opportunity.
I'm so skeptical. I don't trust any of those people that'll make those decisions.
I get the skepticism.
I just like with this football thing that's going on right now.
God.
It's like, listen, like you can say whatever you want. Like, I don't trust your motives. Like,
why can't we? So I just got off the FCS selection committee, and we have a 24 team tournament in the FCS. So North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Drake's part of it. And there's AQs for 10 leagues. I think Ivy League's jumping in next year. So there's 11. But then we just pick the next best teams to fill out the 24 team. And then we go in and we rank them essentially 1 to 16. And those 16 get to play at home for the first round. 1 through 8 are off for the first round. 9 through 16 are at home. Why can't you do the same thing? Why can't you do 1 through 14, 1 through 12, 1 through, and just rank them? And then whoever the top 4 are, great. That's your reward. And then 5 through 8, here's your reward. And not have to be, you have to be a conference champion again. Just do a straight rank.
Well, what I don't understand is the Big Ten and the SEC have every advantage known to man already. I'm preaching to the choir here. I realize this, but like, why do you need 4 automatic? You're already probably going to get that anyway.
Yeah.
But now it just looks so much worse. And it's like they're talking about doing. I guess you may know more than I do, but from what I've read, having like the 6th versus the 3rd place team. So like a 6th place team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, you're gonna reinvent championship weekend, and
and it's all cash grab. They're just it's just to be able to sell more games to ESPN or whatever it is. But it's just like, who wants to? It's kind of like the basketball thing. I don't want to see the 6th place team in the Big Ten play in the college football playoff. Like, who wants that? Yeah. Like, does anybody want that other than the fans of that particular team? Yeah, Hawk fans might. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I just. It's like, well, okay, it's going to be Mississippi State versus no, just put the best damn teams in the playoff. But they won't do it. Like, I don't trust these people.
No. Well, and it's clear who has a seat at the table and who doesn't. And so it's like, okay, we're kind of along for the ride for what those 2 leagues want to do.
Well, and it's going to be really hard for anyone not in those leagues to win it all anyways. Like with the money, the way it's heading. I mean, they're going to be all making $100 million a year in TV rights, and the next highest is like 40, right? Like, so you already have every advantage. Why do you stack the deck even more? That's like with this basketball tournament thing. It's like, come on, don't add 12 teams just to put a bunch of 500. Now I'm just ranting.
Yes, right.
I'm sorry. I'm all amped.
We've really gone down that rabbit hole here.
Oh, I could do.
That's a whole separate podcast.
I could do an entire hour on this, just monologuing, and I would lose the audience in about 10 minutes. But, guys, best of luck this weekend. I know we got a big weekend with the men's and the women's. This was a lot of fun, and thanks for coming in. This is cool. I got to get some blue stuff in here.
We do. Yeah,
we'll get you that.
Yeah,
all right. We'll work on that.
Solve this here.
Next time you come in, we'll have some blue. Brian Hardin, athletic director at Drake, the Boathouse is what I'm going to call him. I kept calling Ryan Boatman Ryan Boathouse earlier. I don't know why. I thought that was his last name, but it's going to stick.
I like it.
They are this week's guests on the CW Pod, presented as always by Steeple Ridge.